Hello, everyone. Although the story that I'm going to talk about has happened for over 22 years ago, it still affects us all today. And in a way, it may be even more important today than it was back then. So, without further ado, imagine a world where history took a very different path. A world where, after the tragic events of September 11th, 2001, the United States didn't immediately see Iraq as an enemy. Instead, Saddam Hussein, the ruler of Iraq, a secular but brutal dictator, extended an unlikely hand. Instead of being invaded in 2003, Iraq became a reluctant ally in the fight against Al-Qaeda. With Saddam's intelligence networks, the US could have had eyes and ears across the Middle East, identifying terror cells, cutting off supply lines, and dismantling extremist networks far faster than history allowed. The war on terror would have looked very different. The United States wouldn't have been mired in the endless quagmire of Iraq. Millions of lives would have been spared. ISIS, which thrived on the chaos left behind by the invasion, may never have existed. The refugee crisis that today strains Europe's borders might have been far smaller. Women in Iraq could have retained the limited freedoms they had under Saddam's secular government. Freedom of choosing clothing, freedom to learn and teach and vote. And beyond lives and stability, there's the financial picture. The Iraqi war alone cost the US trillions of dollars. Without the invasion, that money could have stayed in the American economy, possibly preventing the crushing national debt the country carries today, and freeing resources for domestic priorities. A tense but stable Iraq becomes a regional bulwark, keeping Iran in check, suppressing jihadist movements, and maintaining a fragile peace. The United States, freed from a costly misadventure, focuses its resources on true terrorist threats. But that didn't really happen, did it? No, it did not. What actually happened was a different story. The US, citing weapons of mass destruction that never existed, including alleged illegal biological and chemical weapons programs and an alleged nuclear weapons program, invaded Iraq in 2003. Specialists sent to inspect Iraq found no evidence of these programs. Many experts and legal scholars today argue that the invasion was illegal under international law because it was based on deliberate misinformation. Saddam Hussein was toppled. His army dissolved. The state collapsed. Millions of Iraqis were displaced or killed. A power vacuum allowed extremist groups like ISIS to flourish, spreading terror across the region. Europe now faces a refugee crisis with millions fleeing violence and instability. Women in Iraq lost freedoms in regions taken over by militias and extremists. And the United States? It drained trillions of dollars, contributing heavily to a debt crisis that still affects the country today. And while the world grapples with the aftermath, let's look at the institutions that claim to maintain global peace. The United Nations, for example. On paper, it's a beacon of cooperation. In practice, its structure of often empowers the very powers that destabilize the world. The 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, the US, Russia, China, the UK, and France, each have veto powers. One no vote from any of them can block actions, no matter how many nations agree. The veto was designed to prevent global conflict post-World War II. But in practice, it protects the strong, shields them from accountability, and allows selective enforcement of international law. Consider recent history. Russia vetoes resolutions condemning its invasion of Ukraine. The US vetoes resolutions criticizing Israel. China blocks actions on North Korea and Myanmar. These vetoes do not merely protect national interests. They create a system where superpowers act like older siblings, bullying smaller nations, intervening where they please, and leave the rest of the world to clean up the mess. The European Union often ends up as the middle sibling forced to fix crises it didn't create, from refugee waves to regional instability. The current veto system is outdated, dangerous, and structurally corrupt. It ensures that superpowers like US, China, and Russia operate above the rules they demand of others. Real reform would strip these countries of permanent veto power and give rotating representation to different nations, making the Security Council more democratic and accountable. Only then could the UN actually enforce its mission of peace and justice. History could have been different. Iraq and the US could have teamed up, extremist networks crushed early, trillions of dollars saved, and the Middle East left more stable. But greed, arrogance, and power politics prevailed. The result? Wars, refugee crises, broken nations, and a world where the strongest nations often act with impunity. The older brother who breaks things, while the middle brother and smaller nations pick up the pieces. The question isn't just what happened. It's why we let it happen. And what we'll do about it before history repeats itself. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.